guys of Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Getting the taste of last Sunday's performance out of our mouth with a great week of preparation and having that translate to our performance. We've had a lot of evaluation and critical evaluation of where we're at as a team, both the good and the things that we can improve on, and look forward to hitting the grass today with our team over the next 2 or 3 days and preparing our team accordingly.
Phil, you're muted.
Mackey and Judd. I'm muted? Oh.
You were muted. Looked like you were muted. Now you're good.
Hey, a lot of the audience would appreciate if you're muted.
I know. A lot of people are mad now that I'm not muted anymore. You can't silence me, all you haters. This is Reckless Speculation Thursday here on Mackey and Judd, which means we bring in our friend Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department for inside information about our favorite Minnesota sports teams. We'll get to some forward-looking things. Let's start. There's some Timberwolves stuff that's interesting to unpack, but let's start with anything you know about the current state of the Vikings. Brian O'Neill, he's out for the season, going to undergo surgery. Let's start with just like the Vikings trainer's room, Doogie.
Well, sure, yeah. Brian O'Neill, Austin Schlottman, both undergoing surgery before the week is over, both lost for the year. Now, I suppose if the Vikings make it to the Super Bowl, depending on the recovery of the partially torn Achilles, I mean, I guess maybe there's a 0.1% chance on O'Neill, but yes, in all likelihood, out for the year. What's interesting on O'Neill, I went on TV on Channel 5 here in the Twin Cities on Sunday night. Now, I said, hey, we'll know more on Monday with the MRI, but a lot of people, I got some emails, I got some backlash for people fixating on, and I did say it, so guilty as charged, that there was some optimism on O'Neill. Certainly not for the Chicago game, but heading into the postseason. So what took place was when he was in the locker room before the game was even over on Sunday, he was texting with some people who then I was in touch with. He led those people to believe he didn't think it was a severe injury. So he didn't know at that time that the Achilles was partially torn. So the MRI then revealed that on Monday. So super unfortunate news. I suppose if we were doing a ranking of most valuable Vikings, don't know if he's top 5, but he has to be like right there, like between 5 and 10, maybe closer to 5 than to 10. I get it. Cousins higher, Jefferson higher, some other guys higher, Darrisaw probably higher, just protecting the blind side. But Brian O'Neill, significant loss. So we'll see Oli Udoh in there on Sunday in Chicago. But Blake Brandel is going to be good for the playoffs. He did play right tackle some in college. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Will it be Udoh that weekend of January 14th, whether the Vikings play the Giants or maybe somebody else, but in all likelihood, the Giants being locked in as that 3-6 matchup, whether that game is on Saturday the 14th, Sunday the 15th, or there is one playoff game on Monday night, the 16th. So whenever the Vikings play that weekend at US Bank Stadium, it'll be curious to see who starts at right tackle, Udoh or Blake B. So that will be something I'll keep an eye on next week.
What is the optimism or true word that you've heard behind the scenes on Bradbury, Dukes? Because Kevin O'Connell has basically, because he tries not to lie, right? So he just doesn't outright lie. But, I mean, he has basically been very vague about Bradbury. And obviously, if he can't play in the playoff game, the options aren't great there. So what do you sense or have been told the general optimism is about Garrett playing in the playoff game?
Well, I mean, Judd, I get the vagueness. I mean, timelines can vary. Heck, the Vikings thought Cam Dancer would be okay for that Detroit game on December 11th. He was nowhere near being ready to play on December 11th, right? So Bradbury, super tough guy, getting daily treatment, doing everything he can possibly do to get back out there. If he is out there the weekend of January 14th, the back is not going to be 100%. But like, I can't sit here and tell you 100% he won't be out there. He is aiming to return. He is aiming to play. It's very much a pain threshold type situation, right? And can he move? Can he do what he needs to do? Or are they better off using either the new guy they just signed or Chris Reed at center, somebody whose body is just in a much better position. But like, he is not being ruled out. But Judd, I told you weeks ago,
You did.
I said, hey, we need to dig on this. Some people are telling me that back is really, really messed up. Like, heading into that Detroit game week, after that Jets game, like that Monday, that Tuesday, like some people that were around Garrett were saying he was like literally struggling to walk. But then he was out there limited in practice later that week. So he was feeling better as the week went on. But like immediately after that Jets game, like that Monday especially, like walking was a struggle. That's when people said to me, hey, like, I don't know, like just the way he's talking, the way he's moving or not moving, like we need to look at that possibility of him not returning this year. But as I sit here on January 5th, the morning of January 5th, this Reckless Speculation Thursday, happy Reckless Speculation Thursday, there is a chance that he does return for the playoffs.
So a speculative question beyond the playoffs. He's a free agent. The Vikings sort of waited all this time for him to finally pop up and be the player that he's been this season. He's not a perfect player, but he's been a very serviceable. PFF has him as like the 10th highest graded center. He's been very good. How does the back injury and also just the Vikings' general salary cap situation, which is not favorable, how does all of it put in a stew impact his future with the Vikings? Do you think it's likely that they are interested in bringing him back? Have you heard anything? Just looking beyond the playoffs, Doogie.
They've been very happy with his production this year. So much pressure on him in this contract year, so much pressure coming off the very disappointing 2021 season. They have been very, very pleased. Yes, there's genuine interest in re-signing him. Dalvin Tomlinson, too. Patrick Peterson as well. There haven't been any sort of extension talks. In fact, I brought that up with Tomlinson in the locker room last week, just curious, because we've seen some extensions get done across the league the last few weeks. I know the Browns got one done with an offensive lineman. A couple others have gotten done as well. So I was curious if there's at least been some chatter, some dialogue. Tomlinson said, to date, no. That doesn't mean the Vikings aren't interested in keeping him, but just to date, no extension talk. So, yeah, nothing going on the Bradbury front as well. But, yeah, there is legitimate interest in keeping him here. I don't have any sort of long-term prognosis. I mean, you know, back, right? I mean, that can be one of those tricky ones, right? Just like, you know, Danielle Hunter with the neck, but Danielle Hunter, you know, for the most part has been okay this year. I think Garrett is young enough. He's in good enough shape that he should be able to play for the next handful of years. So if the Vikings are looking at some sort of 4 or 3 year type contract with him, I don't think there's grave concern over such a thing.
If Bradbury does not come back, Dukes, what do you think the odds are? Because this would actually draft-wise dovetail pretty well. That the Vikings would look in their own backyard. John Michael Schmitz is coming out. I actually like him. I think he's a legitimate good pro prospect. And most importantly, he's not a first round pick for sure. Would that make some sense? Because he strikes me as the type of guy with his size and ability who could probably step in and play day one. I don't think he's the type of guy who would fail. And most importantly, again, it would all depend on what round, because that's where, you know, the idea of going and drafting a guy in the first round to me is not palatable. You've got needs beyond that. But John Michael Schmitz, I think, would make some sense.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, not in the first round. I mean, you go corner or pass rusher, maybe wide receiver in the first round. You're not going center in the first round. But yeah, sometime on day 2, maybe the second of your 2 picks there. That second day, maybe more so third round, not second round. You know, let's see how he performs in Mobile. He'll get a combine invite if he hasn't already, so he'll be in Indianapolis as well. I imagine he's going to interview very favorably. My Gopher friends tell me all sorts of great things about the kid. Just a great, great kid on the field. Heck, he should have won the award for Center of the Year. Why the Michigan kid won that award is beyond me. I actually used to vote for that award. It's unfortunate that vote doesn't exist anymore. They rotate votes every handful of years. He would have gotten my vote for Center of the Year. I don't know from a schematic standpoint. I voted for the Remington Award.
Yeah, well.
I did. Yeah, of all the awards, like Chris Long in our office has a Heisman vote, right? Like, how great would it be to have a Heisman vote? I've got the Remington Award vote.
That's amazing. Judd, maybe we can get you a Pro Football Researchers Hall of Very Good award from Purple Daily today.
I don't even qualify for that.
From a schematic standpoint, I don't know if he's an ideal fit. I'll do that research later. I just know, yes, you look at the last few years, all the games he has started. You talk to people over at the U, they will gush about him on the record, on background. Like if you're trying to dig, there's no skeletons in that kid's closet. There is so much to like about John Michael Schmitz.
I for sure have one more Vikings thing. We can get to some potentially juicy Timberwolves stuff too, but we did a little bit of a dive on Purple Daily today on just the downfall of Adam Thielen, and he's I don't think he's 100% healthy, but he's also 32 years old. He's played a car crash style of football. He's not afraid to take hits throughout his career. And if you look at some of the metrics, yards per route run against man coverage, 4 years ago, he was one of the best in the NFL. Now he's one of the worst. He had 9 100-yard games in 2018. He's had a handful since, none since week 6 of 2021. Contested catch rate. He used to be pretty good. He used to catch like half of the contested 50-50 balls. Now he's 4 of 19, 3 interceptions on contested throws this year. So, I don't know. I guess my question is, what's the future of Adam Thielen? What have you heard about his current health status? Is there a bounce back here? And what can they do with him? Because his cap hit is the second highest on the team next year, and there's not a lot of relief for just getting rid of him because of the way they restructured that contract. He's kind of just, you're going to have to either pay him a lot or eat a lot to get rid of him for 2023 at this point.
Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, right now I see him here in 23, then gone thereafter. I mean, strategically, that's the way his local agent Blake Barrett's, constructed the contract. It was always pointing to here in 22, here in 23, then likely gone thereafter. He is not healthy, in terms of being 100%. Now, at this point of the season, a lot of guys are dinged up. But, yeah, the knee, just some body aches. Yeah, I mean, he's not close to 100%. He's no longer even their second wide receiver option. I mean, clearly that's KJ Osborne, right? It's not Adam Thielen in terms of just the overall passing game. He's at best, option 4, right? Because TJ Hawkinson is option 2, then Osborne 3, if you want to include Dalvin Cook to some extent. But at best, option 4, right? So, but yeah, I'll be surprised if he isn't here just based on what you just laid out, Phil, with the dead money. If he's not here in 23, they love the man as a team ambassador, Walter Payton Man of the Year, all that good stuff. He represents the organization incredibly well. So, I can see them bringing him back, for a final year, with all signs pointing to him not being back in 24.
Do you sense, Dukes, that he would try and go play elsewhere or retire?
I think more the latter. Yeah. I mean,
me too.
Let's reevaluate exactly how he's feeling this time next year. But I could certainly see some sort of him walking away. He's got some business interests, with ETS and all that. His oldest is either in full-time school at this point or on the cusp of, being like in kindergarten or first grade.
Plan.
It would be. Yeah, I mean, that would be the comp, right? Sure. It would be very similar to the Chad Greenway plan. So, yeah, I would be surprised if Adam, jumped to, you name the organization, San Francisco, Baltimore, wherever, and played somewhere in 24.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the latest Timberwolves drama here. Now, they've won 2 games in a row. Anthony Edwards driving the offense. The last 10 games, Anthony Edwards averaging almost 30 points, 8 rebounds, handful of assists. He's shooting like 48%, so there's something there.
Absolutely something there. That ascension we were waiting to see year 2 to year 3. We saw it last year with Ja Morant in Memphis, year 2 to year 3. We are now seeing that come to fruition year 3 for Anthony Edwards. Yeah, I mean, over the last 10 games, only one game where he's been below 25 points. He has been off the charts.
But it might be coming at a cost because according to the internet, D'Angelo Russell has unfollowed the Timberwolves on Instagram, and he reposted something. I don't have it in front of me, but it was some sort of bet on yourself type.
Yeah, I think it was a Fred
social.
Van Vliet
Okay.
tweet, right, from the Toronto Raptors.
Yep.
This
And
comes after
did he
missed
retweet it? I don't know. I can't keep track of all these social media happenings. And is it just Instagram or is it also Twitter? Like, do we know that?
I don't know, Dex. Can you find out if D'Lo has unfollowed the Wolves on Twitter?
I'll check the Twitter sphere.
Okay.
I know he unfollowed them on the Instagram. Let me check.
So the thing so they had a players only meeting that was sort of contentious, but it was just like, hey guys, what are we doing here? 6 straight losses, closed door. Naz Reid had some weird comments afterwards saying, we know what the problem is, but I don't want to talk about it publicly. And so we don't know exactly what, maybe you know more, but then D'Lo missed a game with an illness, came back last night, made one shot, and then was benched for the last sequence where the Wolves needed some better defense on the floor, and Chris Finch went with it. And Finch, after the game, said it wasn't like an anti-D'Lo thing. I just needed better defense. Well, I mean, needing better defense is kind of an anti-D'Lo thing. It's a fact. So what do you make of all of it here, Doogie?
Well, what I make, Phil, is if Tim Connolly wanted D'Angelo Russell here long term, a contract extension would have been done by now. So the question is, do you trade him before the deadline on February 8th, or do you wait until the summer, work out some sort of sign and trade? But it's hard to see D'Lo here starting next season. Now, I will defend D'Angelo Russell to some extent on last night. When he was in the game, the ball wasn't sticky. I thought he had some good moments. I thought the effort was good. The hustle was good. Let me also note, so my TV colleague, Jay Coles, was working on a story on just the crappy roads here in the Twin Cities on Wednesday, and he did a shadow with a tow truck driver, and they ended up towing, or they needed some assistance. But anyway, it was D'Angelo Russell's car. Now, I texted somebody with the Wolves, said, hey, is D'Lo okay? I heard he was in a car accident. This high-ranking Wolves official texted back, he's okay. Now, do I know 100%, though, that D'Lo was in that car? I guess I don't know that, but based on the timing, it was about 4:15, 4:30, somewhere in that vicinity. That's about the time that the Wolves players would be driving to Target Center. It was right off 394 last night, the 6th Street exit. He hit a guardrail, or the person driving his car hit a guardrail. The airbag was deployed.
Wow.
So, I mean, there was pretty good contact. Now, the roads were crap. Like, there were a ton of accidents, right? I mean, he may just have been going, or whoever was driving the car may have just been going a bit too fast. Like, there's no other concern. There were hundreds of accidents in the Twin Cities last night. So it's not like he was unique in that regard. But that had to be, whether he was a passenger or the driver, the car absolutely registered to his name, Florida license plates. That's his full-time home down in the Miami area. Regardless of that, though, just everything pointed to, just based on the records and everything, that being D'Angelo Russell's car. So, you know, that had to be a scary experience. So the fact that he found a way to overcome that and have a pulse and help the Wolves win again, I will give him credit for that. Judd, do you remember when we went back and forth on Tuesday, I said, look at the upcoming schedule. Where is that opportunity to win like 5 games in a row or win like 9 out of 12? Well, guess what? After winning last night, the Clippers come here tomorrow night. Well, the Clippers play a late one tonight in Denver. No guarantees that Paul George, Kawhi Leonard play both games of this back-to-back. Plus, the Clippers won't get in until 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. That is a schedule. Well, it's a schedule win for the Wolves. Whether they win on the court remains to be seen. But that is a schedule win for the Wolves, just like Monday was after Denver played the Celtics on Sunday night, didn't arrive here until 3:30, 4 a.m. on Monday morning. The Wolves took advantage. I was texting with Ryan Saunders. He said, hey, credit to the Wolves. They played hard. They took advantage of how tired we were. We were tired on Monday. So the Wolves won that schedule game on Monday. The Wolves should win this schedule game tomorrow at Target Center against the Clippers. Well, that would be a 3-game winning streak. You then have road games in Houston, in Detroit. Judd, there it is. There's your 5-game winning streak. You should win tomorrow, then win in Houston, then win in Detroit. Now, Detroit won last night at the buzzer at Golden State. They won here, so it looks like Detroit is all of a sudden, Dwayne Casey has those guys playing a lot better, the Wolves coach. But Detroit is all about having the best possible lottery odds, come the spring. So Detroit wants to stockpile losses as soon as possible. So this 5-game winning streak is staring the Wolves in the face, but the Western Conference continues to be really, really good. But I suppose it helps the Warriors lose last night. The Kings lose last night. I mean, on a nightly basis, the standings fluctuate big time, but the Wolves should absolutely minimum be in the play-in again. And I do think there's a realistic pathway to finishing as high as 5 or even 6. I don't see them getting to that preseason goal of home court advantage in the first round, being a top 4 seed, but there is a legit pathway to being like the 5 or the 6 seed. They did, remember, this time last year, they did catch fire. I get it, different core. You're missing Bev and Beasley and Vanderbilt, but, the main players helped lead the Wolves to a really, really productive January, February, March last year. So maybe that turn is happening again this year.
D'Lo does not follow the Timberwolves on Twitter either. No Timberwolves. He follows some players. He follows Towns, Gobert.
Now, do we know if he did?
Well, I don't know. Would we be able to see?
I don't know.
And one other
Declan's
D'Lo
not that
note.
big of a-
Maybe this fits the reckless speculation theme.
come on.
Let me find it here. His brother. Give me a second. His brother is a lawyer, and the word is he's in the process of becoming certified. So he would become an agent. So his brother becomes an agent. Does D'Lo then, become represented by his brother, not by Creative Arts Agency? Or maybe his brother ends up joining Creative Arts Agency, but that would be another interesting angle to keep an eye on heading into the summer unrestricted free agency.
Interesting. Wow. These last 2 games have been, I think, maybe job-saving in some regard, if not straight up for Chris Finch. I guess my next question for you is, the 6-game losing streak and the players-only contentious meeting and everything, and Rudy Gobert has barely even found, chemistry pairings on the court that work well. I think Kyle Anderson's one of them.
Yeah, Kyle, right? And Jordan McLaughlin when he's been healthy, but McLaughlin, I've said this for the last week, he's not going to be back anytime soon. I'll leave it at that for right now. McLaughlin is still going to be out for a number of weeks.
Yeah. So, I mean,
stinks, but it's the reality.
Where's the franchise at with this? Do you think Tim Connolly wakes up in the morning and regrets the trade? Do you think Chris Finch is another 4-game losing streak away from getting fired? There are multiple games under 500 halfway through the season here. This is not how they envisioned it. I get that Cat's been hurt, but there's enough talent here. What's your read on the room here with the Timberwolves?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's almost like we had some sort of pre-show production meeting.
It is.
Didn't actually.
It's crazy, yeah.
So thank you for bringing this up, because Judd asked me a variation of this very inquiry on Tuesday about Chris Finch's job security. I told Judd my sense was then on Tuesday morning that Chris Finch is plenty safe, that Glenn Taylor, who's still in charge, is not cutting the big fat check to kick Finch to the curb. Remember, Glenn did that with Tibbs. Heck, did it with Ryan Saunders when Ryan sat out last year. Don't feel like Glenn is inclined to pay Finch a bunch of money to go away. Remember, Finch signed a nice extension in April. But then a few hours later, Tuesday late afternoon, a plugged-in source texted me saying, hey, you might want to check on Finch being on thin ice. I said, okay. Reached out to some coaching friends, some agent friends. They all got back to me and said, no, we're not necessarily hearing that. Maybe at the end of the season. Somebody else told me, hey, don't forget Finch and Connolly were together in Denver. Don't make it seem like those two are the best of friends. I mean, they have a good working relationship, but it's not like Finch and Connolly are tied to the hip like Rosas and Finch were. So at some point, Connolly may want to bring in his own head coach. But I think that's something we keep an eye on more in the spring, not immediately, but absolutely on my radar. But I just don't think Glenn, as long as Glenn is the majority owner. Now, Glenn can be convinced on many things. We've seen it going back years. So while Glenn right this second might not be inclined to cut the check, Glenn maybe could be convinced to cut the check. But right now, especially after these 2 wins, the way the team has played, I was at the game on Monday. The effort has been A+. So Finch certainly deserves credit for that. So as we sit here this second on Thursday, January 5th, Finch is plenty safe.
And Dukes, how much is Finch to blame here? Because I mean, it seems like the whole thing has, until the past 2 games, gone off the rails. Conley made the trade. So like if we were to do a pie chart of blame for this whole thing not coming close to expectations, like how much of a slice of the pie does Finch get?
Well, I mean, Judd, Finch was very pro the trade. Okay. Trust me, Finch was pushing on this. Finch was in those talks. He was involved. Finch was very pro. Let's go get Rudy Gobert. Mm-hmm. But yeah, ultimately it's Connolly's decision. Finch deserves enough blame, not all of the blame. I'm telling you, the most damning thing to me on Finch is lack of effort. The fact that he has cited that, not in the last couple weeks, but you go back to November, he cited we have to play harder. To me, that's an indictment on him. That's an indictment on the head coach when this team hasn't given maximum effort, like on New Year's Eve against Detroit, a couple Mondays ago against Miami, other games we can cite in Charlotte, specifically that second half. And I can cite 3 or 4 other examples earlier in the season, one of the Spurs games, right? There's been some others too, right? But like when the effort isn't there the way it should be, that to me that's an indictment on Chris. So, he deserves blame. There's no doubt about it. But I still think he's a really good offensive mind. I think the Wolves have had a good level of success coming out of timeouts. So whatever plays he's drawing up, I mean, heck, even in Miami, the right read wasn't made. Now, maybe he should have had Austin Rivers inbounding that ball, not Jaden McDaniels. But Naz Reid was wide open. The design of the play was brilliant. The read just wasn't made by the inbounder. But, I think his play designs are fantastic. I still think the defense is a work in progress. But Elston Turner is more in charge of the defense than Chris is. But, again, ultimately, he's the head coach. He's in charge of the defense, even if Turner is this de facto defensive coordinator. But yeah, I mean, he's at fault for some of this, but I would still take him over a lot of guys, right? But you can always probably do better, right? Would you rather have Quinn Snyder coaching the Wolves right now? Now, if you're Quinn, I wouldn't take this job. I'd wait for another job. But if you're Quinn Snyder, would you rather have this job or some other job? I'd rather have another job. But if you're just, if you were Glenn Taylor without having to cut the check, just all things equal, would you rather have Quinn Snyder or Chris Finch? Well, okay, give me Quinn Snyder.
Me too, yeah.
Right? But you can always do worse, too. I'm a big believer in be careful what you wish for. I still think Chris is a pretty good overall coach.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to see, I guess I need to see more, but we've seen 40 games. That's what's hard to parse apart is, all right, have we seen enough to where the experiment doesn't work and now it's time to figure out a coaching change,
right? Because Cat and Gobert have only been on the court for how many games together? I don't have the exact number in front of me. What is it,
20.
11, 12, 13? Is it as high as 20?
15 or 20, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it's closer to 15, but that's not a large enough sample size. There's not enough sampling there to suggest, okay, it absolutely isn't going to work.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, if they don't make the trade, right, they'd have this record, if not a better record, with the guys they gave up, including Walker Kessler, who the Wolves had a very healthy opinion on. You watch Walker Kessler,
he's been
what he's been doing in Utah, holy cow. He's not going to be an all-star anytime soon, but he is a difference maker. He can do everything that Rudy can do, right? And you could have had him on a rookie contract. So, I mean, that's another strike against Connolly. It just is. I mean, he identified the player, and he knew he had to give to get. But maybe he should have just had a little bit longer term vision on, hey, we can make this thing work. Whatever we want from Rudy, we'll get it from Walker in a year or two.
Yeah. Dukes, we know we're kind of tight on time here, so go ahead and empty your scoop bag. What else do you have for us before you take off here?
Sure. On the Twins, there was another conversation on Tuesday afternoon on A.J. Pollock, not specifically with A.J., just his camp, Thad Levine, some dialogue. So the Twins remain interested in him. There's still some interest in Michael Wacha. But I told Judd this on Tuesday, Phil, they planted a seed weeks ago on Johnny Cueto. They are not getting Johnny Cueto. I can just tell you, Johnny Cueto is not going to end up.
What are they doing
with the Twins? So, okay,
bring in Michael
Wacha,
Wacha
but
and Joey Gallo and slap him
there's
on
nothing
the
new.
program?
preparing for this back and forth. I texted somebody this morning. There's nothing new, no new dialogue. There's not an offer being made yet on Waka, but I suppose as long as the best free agent starter is out there and the Twins have all this money, we'll keep an eye on it. The Twins continue to have trade dialogue, right, on acquiring a shortstop. I mean, they've spoken with Miami, they've spoken with Tampa, San Diego, some other teams as well. I mean, they're going to make a trade at some point. I think it'll be Max Kepler going out.
Yeah.
But is there a second trade that brings in a shortstop, or can you match up on Kepler? So that would definitely be something to keep an eye on here the next few weeks.
Interesting. Well, there it is. A good scoop session here on this Reckless Speculation Thursday. Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department. Good stuff, Dukes.
All right, boys. Happy New Year. I think the threshold is still there. Declan and I went back and forth.
No,
it's curfew
no,
Tuesday.
no,
No.
3 days.
No. In fact, I haven't even seen
3
Phil.
days.
I have not
No.
seen Phil
Well, that's not
since the
our
first of the
fault.
year.
You
I'm
could've
good with the
texted them.
Dukes. Happy
Statute
New Year to you.
limitations.
Yeah, so I can wish Phil a Happy New Year. Declan
Happy
and
New
Judd,
Year.
yeah, bleep you guys. But Phil, Happy New Year. I'm good at least through Sunday, okay? So happy Reckless Speculation
Happy
Thursday.
St.
See ya.
Patrick's Day then, too. Okay, see ya. Bye.
See ya.
All right, see ya. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Now you're just being hyperbolic.
Oh, yeah. I'm being obnoxious because I'm with Declan here.
Yep.